TacTalk, brought to you by GunsAmerica.com and also VulcanArms.com. And today we're going to talk about a really an important topic that I think a lot of people wonder about. And it's the Second Amendment. What's important about it, and why should we care? Andrew, what?
It's probably the most fundamental conversation that we can have, being guys within the industry, being guys that are freedom lovers, that are patriots. Yep. This is. Let me start off also by saying that this is a non-political topic. This is an American topic, right? The Second Amendment is in our Constitution, and it's there for a reason, right? And that's kind of what we're going to set out to discuss today.
Absolutely.
This isn't left or right. This is, what is it?
Well, yeah, let's break it down to what is it? What was its purpose? Where did it start? Why did it come around, right? And ultimately, we can tie that into where we are today, right? And so if we think about the framers of the Constitution, right? Let's think about the mindset of where they were when they wrote that. So when they drafted that document, which is the underpinnings of our entire society at this point, right? Here in America, where were they? What did they just come from? What was their mindset?
Right. So, our founders are in a position now where they've written what I would call the first death document, right? The first death document being the Declaration of Independence, right? Once they penned their name to that document, they said, we're going at this. We are going to establish the United States of America, a free nation, right? And we all are familiar with that document. But then we find ourselves now at Independence Hall in a situation now where we have won the Revolutionary War, but now we have this responsibility to govern, right? And the responsibility to govern has fallen on the founding fathers. And as they begin to pen and to write this document, it goes through its iterations. And we finally end up with this document, and it's more than just the Bill of Rights, right? We end up with this document that is basically the catalyst to a free society of well-governed people.
Right.
And it basically is a document that was written to protect against what we had just fought a war to get away from.
Which was what? Exactly,
right? Which was tyranny.
Yeah, we had just gone through at that point a revolution, right? The Revolutionary War, and it was fighting tyranny. It was breaking free of that, right? Breaking free of a government that at the time, and the whole reason we were here and dealing with this was, being told what to do, when to do, and how to do it, regardless of what the citizens themselves wanted.
Right. So, and the debate now is happening in Independence Hall amongst the founders on what kind of government we are going to have.
Yep.
Right. And probably one of my favorite quotes, and I will tell you, I've sat on the steps. There's a picture of me sitting on the steps. Benjamin Franklin, Dr. Benjamin Franklin, is leaving Independence Hall, and a lady is recorded asking the question, well, what do we have? What kind of government do we have? And Benjamin Franklin's response is a republic, if you can keep it.
Right.
Right. That was, and that segues now into where we are. And the topic where we are today and what we're going to talk about today is the Second Amendment, right? It was written so that we might be able to keep our republic.
Right? And which the First Amendment being what?
Right, the freedom of speech. And press.
Right. Yeah. And how do we ultimately keep freedom of speech? Freedom of press, right? Yeah. We ensure and make sure that our government cannot put a stamp on it, right? Can't grind it down, right? And so now you have a document. Then you get the First Amendment. Now they're talking about the Second Amendment, and they write it. And let's talk about what the Second Amendment is, right? What is it exactly?
So the Second Amendment basically states, in its simplicity, right, it is the right to keep and bear arms, necessary for a regulated militia to keep a free state shall not be infringed. Right. That's in a nutshell the Second Amendment.
Is there anything about hunting in there?
No.
I thought the whole point was we could have guns so that we could hunt.
Now, you might keep and bear arms so long as they are muskets. From the American Revolution, and they must be serialized and
that too.
They must be serialized.
So they have to be muskets. They got to be black powder, right? And it also says serialized.
They have to be serialized.
That's all bullshit,
right? No, right? They have to be serialized, right? And we have to be able to have them processed by an antiquities dealer to know that they are from the time period of the American Revolution.
And they have to be, okay. Like they have to be from that period. Mm-hmm. And single shot only, probably, right?
Right, 100%.
It's all bullshit, right?
100%.
It's all bullshit. It goes down to the exact thing that you said, right? And that is the right to own and bear arms.
Right. So, look, as much as cool as I think Ted Nugent is, right? Like, I do think he's a little bit out there and extreme sometimes.
Sure.
But Ted Nugent's big push and big thing, like, and while he is a little bit flamboyant or bombastic about it, it's basically whatever the government owns, I can own, right? So if they can have a tank, I can have a tank. If they can have a jet, I can have a jet, right? While I do see that as kind of like that extreme...
Well, it is extreme, but it's not wrong.
It's not wrong. It's true.
Right? And so that goes into an argument that I think people kind of use, right? And they say, okay, you know, the framers did mean it to right and bear arms in a well-regulated militia so that we could essentially hold our government accountable.
Yep.
Right? And so some people say now, well, is that really realistic in the fact that the government's got F-35s and our guns are never going to compete with that?
Yeah.
True. Yeah. My guns and anything in my armory cannot compete with an F-35, right? But there are enough of us in America that have firearms, right? That unless the government is really willing to go full bore to kill us all, we may not have F-35s, but we got a force, in a sense, right?
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? And let's look at this in a realistic way, like from a realistic perspective. The debate should never have been, nor should it ever be, on the right to keep and bear arms, right? That part to me is ridiculous. It's silly to even argue about, because I think responsible people who understand, right? Let's go all the way back to the Declaration of Independence, right? Our founding fathers, and regardless of what you believe, right? Like if you go to the Smithsonian Institute today, you'll see what's known as the Jefferson Bible, right? The Jefferson Bible, it has tons of holes in it. A lot of scripture has been carved out, and he purposefully did that because there are things that he believed in and things that he did not. Like he did not believe in the resurrection of Jesus, so he cut that out of his Bible. He believes it was too superstitious, right? Okay. So we have a Bible. It's called the Jefferson Bible. So anything that was overly superstitious or deistic, he did not necessarily believe in, but he believed in the principles of Scripture from a morality and good standing perspective. Not to get too off the rails from the Second Amendment, but 25% of the signers, so a quarter of the signers of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, were active clergymen or active preachers and pastors within their churches, right? So it goes all the way back to the aspect of inalienable rights and endowed by their Creator, right? My God-given right is to protect myself, to protect and defend my family. And look, I'm not going to get here and I'm not going to start a debate on what you believe, what I believe religiously, your God, my God, this, that, and your God-given right, whatever that might be to you, is to defend yourself and your family.
Let's just go with that.
Right. Well, I would say your human right? But all of the founders, whether religious or not, agreed that there was a higher power, this deistic aspect to the humanality of who we are to protect and defend themselves.
Okay.
Right? So that if you look at it from that perspective, you have a responsibility according to the founders in our founding document. And let's just be totally honest, right? You go back to the probably what is one of the second most widely recognized religious groups in the world today is Islam. Same principles and facets concerning protection, self-defense, and all of those things, right? And most people who are responsible, who are reasonable, right, would want to take care of themselves.
Well, but Andy, we don't need to protect ourselves because we have government and military, and we also have police to do that for us, right?
Yeah. Right? Go ahead. When they break into your house and they have a gun to your head, say, "Hold on, let me call 911."
Hold on, let me call 911. Yeah. Right? They don't. No, they can't be there at all.
They can't. So take a step back. The responsibility, the right to keep and bear arms, that shouldn't be the discussion. The discussion should be, at what point is or is not a state considered free? That should be the debate that we are having concerning the Second Amendment.
Well, seems like a whole other conversation for another day.
It really
we got to have, right?
It really is, right? But the narrative is let's talk about guns with the Second Amendment.
Right.
Bro, the important part about the Second Amendment is the fact that you have guns to keep yourself in a free state.
Right. In which case, today there's a huge argument to be made as to whether we are in a free state.
Exactly.
Right? And the fact that we are constantly, one thing the government is really good at doing is adding regulations and adding laws. Do they ever take one off the books? No. So I mean, there's tons of states in different situations where there's laws on the books that seem absolutely ridiculous.
Yep.
Well, it's because they just don't take anything off, right? And they keep adding and adding and adding to it. And the point where you continually add and add laws, you are now regulating, and you are then again, you are controlling what people can and cannot do. And really, it's getting to where it's the nth degree, right?
Yep.
To where it's almost as if we're not free, anymore. Now, as compared to other countries, are we still better off at this point? Yeah.
100%.
And why are we better off at this point, right?
Right.
I think part of that probably is because of the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Right? Because if nothing else, it does keep our politicians honest to some level.
Yeah.
Now, laughable honest and politicians in the same sense.
Let's bring this into modern day, right? At the time of this filming, it is April the 10th, 2024.
Okay.
Right? It's April 10th, 2024. It's not going. This episode probably won't be released for 2 weeks. But in 2024, like, we're looking at this in today, right? If we're looking at this today, as today sits, as today exists, when we look at the Second Amendment, okay, we look at free states, we look at all of these things, we have to ask ourselves now, right? When things happened with our economy, when things happened with the inflation and all of these things, right? What's the very first thing where we are right now? That's the part I was missing. 2024 in Texas. The very first thing that people in Texas on the conservative side cry out when crap happens with the federal government: secede! Right?
No, it's every year, right?
Right? Every year. At some point, something happens and we say secede. But why is that a thing? Why is it important? Well, because the fact is, within our founding documents as a state here in the state of Texas, we did institute that we would enter the Union, the United States of America, contingent upon the fact that we at any point in time could maintain our own natural resources and government and succeed and be our own country, right? That is an agreement that we have with the Union, right? That is the agreement that was voted and instituted upon when Texas came into the Union, right? And people think that is still viable, still active. Is it still on the books? Absolutely 100% is. Is it still a possibility? It absolutely 100% is. Is it likely, or is it going to happen? Probably not.
Yeah.
But the reason that we do that, the reason that we say that is because we're looking at this and we're like, we want to maintain being a free state. That's what people look at, right? Again, well, how would we do that? Well, yeah, we do have probably the most guns. We do actually have the most guns per capita per human in the United States, in Texas.
Sure.
Right? But we also have, in most areas, less gun violence, less crime.
Well, let's back it up.
Right?
Less violence.
Right.
I think that is actually something you just said there, a misnomer and a term that needs to go away. Gun violence.
Gun violence, right? Violence is violence.
Gun violence is bullcrap. No matter whether it happens by gun, whether it happens by knife, wrecking people with a car, whatever it is violence, right? And so let's keep the focus on that, is that we need to work on a society and build a society where violence itself is not at the core.
Yep.
Right? Because the reality is, we take guns. Let's say something happens and guns go away.
Yeah.
People will find a way to hurt people.
Right.
Hurt people.
Yeah.
Right. Which ultimately comes into kind of, to me, what is another issue we'll do in another episode, and that is mental illness. And the epidemic which we do have around mental illness in this country, and the fact that we need to focus on helping people so that they don't get to a point to where they hurt people.
Yeah.
Right. I digress. Let's get back to the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
So,
but as we as we talk about those things, right? Even for example, this issue, the Second Amendment issue, right? That triggers people into this emotional frenzy of Congress. It does. Like it really does. And like, man, it's a right.
Yeah.
It is a right. And so I've laid the premise, right, of where and how this started. We joked about the black powder musket and all of those things,
sure.
right? Look, the reality is that does not state a particular firearm because we expected Bro, our country is only 200 and some change years old.
Not that old, right?
It's not that old.
Seems old, but it's not.
Right? I think Joe Rogan put it best. 4 generations ago, your ancestors were riding horse and buggy on cobble streets.
I saw an Instagram reel about this recently, and it said that 1937, does that feel like a long time ago to you? It does, right? Yeah. To all of us, it does. 1937 seems like eons ago, especially if we think about what they did and how they got around, communications, everything at that point, right? But what I saw in this Instagram reel is that if you look at 1980 compared to 1937, and then today to 1980, we are actually further away from 1980 today than 37 was.
Yeah.
That puts it in perspective that it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
So if you think about the whole 200 some odd years, we're not old.
No. We're not, right? So one of the things that our founding fathers in their lifetime saw was the advancements of technology and industry, right? And they knew that was to come in the event that we would become a free nation. At the risk of becoming a free nation, they knew that when they would put these documents in their wisdom, when they would pen these documents, they would need to be structured or constructed in such a way that they would be life lasting of the government, right? So there is not a particular firearm listed because of the advancement of technology, right?
Well, and the whole notion that, with advancement of technology, I mean, we understand that today, if we go to what they had back then, a musket or whatever, all the way today, they could not have foreseen that we would have had semi-automatic or even fully automatic weapons, right? But could we also have foreseen that the government would have an F-35?
No.
Or a nuclear bomb or something, right? Absolutely not. And so the idea here is that they wrote it in such a way that things would pace.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, it tracks, right? So look at that. Like, consider that for just a moment, right? Again, the whole purpose of the Second Amendment, not the Second Amendment, the whole purpose of the Constitution from beginning to end was to prevent tyranny.
Absolutely.
Period.
100%.
It wasn't to prevent violence or gun violence. It wasn't to prevent neighbor from shooting neighbor.
For that matter, let's keep in mind, in their perspective, they lived in a very violent world.
Yeah.
I mean, the Revolutionary War was a very violent place. It was a very violent time to be alive. Yeah. And they were not so much concerned with that, but they were concerned about the preservation of this world and this government and tyranny being squashed.
Yeah. Right. And I look at it from the perspective, like, you, dude, go back to that day, right? I go back to an earlier time or later time period than that, right? I go back to World War II, right? A generation that we would call the greatest generation, right? They don't make men like that anymore. Those dudes were some bad dudes.
Yeah, they were.
And they were violent dudes.
Yeah.
But they are the most, they are also from one of the most peaceful generations.
Right.
They were violent because they had to be.
Right.
Our founders engaged in violence because they had to in order that they might prevent tyranny and leave for a generation to come an established nation.
I believe personally, and I'm probably going to get flamed for this, but I believe that having the ability to be violent when necessary is an important trait.
100%.
An important trait in myself and you and those around me and this and that, right? Am I inherently violent? No.
Yeah.
Right? Most people would say I'm quite the opposite, actually, and whatnot. But I am highly capable of being violent.
Yeah.
If and when that situation comes.
Dude, 100% right. I think Thomas Jefferson probably said it best. Thomas Jefferson said, if trouble must come, let it come in my day so that my children might live in peace.
That's right.
Right. So, and you think about it the other way, right? I'm a peaceful guy. But what makes me peaceful is my capability for violence.
That's right.
Right? If I am not capable of violence, I'm not peaceful, I'm harmless.
Right. That's right. Right.
Yeah, I never want to be harmless.
No, absolutely not, right? And so let's go to the Second Amendment and use some of the arguments today on why people say, right?
Cool.
And so people talk about today of, we need gun control, we need this, and they have arguments around regulation of further of firearms. And now, let's mind you, we have significant regulation on the books right now today, right? Is it a reality that you have to have a background check to be able to get a firearm?
Is that a reality? Yes, it is.
It is today, right?
It is today.
Is it part of our law?
No,
it's rules that have gone into play. It is inherently, in my opinion, against the Constitution and the Second Amendment, the way 100%. It was written. But we do have that right now today. And I think the majority of the public thinks that you can run out and just get a gun today.
Yeah,
right?
no, you cannot. For example, we live in Texas, so I'm going to speak to Texas law on purchasing a firearm. I do believe it is federal, but maybe there's something out there that I don't know, okay?
Sure.
18 years old to legally purchase a long gun, right? Yep. Legally purchase a long
21,
gun. 18 years old. 21 for a handgun or a pistol, right? And both of those are contingent upon passing a NICS federal background check. Right, so the reality
so to clarify, is the ATF doing that background check? FBI is doing it, right? Yep.
The FBI, right? So I have to pass an FBI background check in order to even purchase and possess that firearm.
That's right. Yep.
So there is gun control.
Yeah, there is, right? And that's to buy a new gun, right? Now, I can go and buy one from you personally, hand to hand, right?
Yep, in Texas.
In Texas, I can do that, exactly. And so I can do that. We can hand to hand transfer a gun, but what's the difference of me doing that when I go buy a car and I have to have it registered with the federal government, or the state government, or if I want to sell it to you individually? It's the same thing. Like, we can't necessarily do that, right?
Let me speak to that just a second, because I've done that before. I've done a private seller, a private, firearms, right? Reality, and it never. Clarify before somebody just gets on there and jockeys. I never bought a firearm with that intent, right? But I've bought guns that I just didn't like or I didn't shoot. And the reality is they're investments, and they're sitting there, and they're money makers.
They don't lose value.
Yeah, they don't lose value.
No.
So I have sold a firearm in a private transaction, but I wrote a bill of sale.
And if you're like me, you probably did. When I've done that, I have sold it to somebody else that was a concealed handgun holder, 100%. Right? And I actually saw their license before I transferred it to them, right?
Yep.
Meaning I know they went through the background checks.
Yeah, they did, and we signed two copies of the bill of sale, and I have that. Why do I do that? Because in the event that I sell you a firearm, you go and commit a crime with it,
they come back to you.
They're going to trace it back to me, and then I can prove, hey, here is the bill of sale.
That's responsible gun ownership.
It's responsible gun ownership. Yeah. The reality is, no legal gun owner, that by legal gun owner I mean responsible gun owner, is just going to go say, give me $50 and here's my gun. Like, no.
Yeah, exactly. And you're certainly not walking up and saying, hey, are you up to no good?
Yeah.
You're a law-abiding citizen for the most part. Let me sell it to somebody that I know it's going to be used in a crime. Yeah. That would be idiotic. You bought it. You were on the books for having it.
Yep.
There you go, right? And so people want now, and they're screaming, we need more gun regulation. We need more of this. When in reality, that's not in line with the Constitution, not in line with the Second Amendment. And then we talk about what are some of the arguments people use against the Second Amendment, right? Mm-hmm. We talked and joked earlier about how people talk about, well, you don't need an AR-15 for hunting, okay?
You've obviously never gone hog hunting.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Now, our AR-15s, it is also another name for it these days, and for that style of firearm is the modern sporting rifle, right? And the vast majority of times that an AR-15 is used, it is used for hunting.
Yeah.
Right? It is used for, like you said, hog hunting. Hog hunting is important. Hogs move, and they move fast.
Yeah.
And you need to get some rounds off pretty quick.
Yeah.
And
studies have been done across the board here in the state of Texas. It is an invasive species that does destroy farmland and agricultural spaces, right? So they have to be eradicated in mass.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, farmers sometimes will pay you to come do it on their land because they need them the hell out of there. They need them gone. But let's go tie that back to the Second Amendment, though. Is there anything, period, in the Second Amendment that says it's for hunting and that's why I need a gun?
No.
That's why I should be allowed to have one, rather. No, there's not. But people continually point to that argument, right? Yeah. We hear politicians say this. We hear folks in the very liberal political leanings say that. Well, you don't need that to hunt.
Yeah.
Well, I get it. You say that I may not need that to hunt, but the fact of the matter is that's not why the Second Amendment exists.
Yeah.
And let's make that real frickin' clear.
Second Amendment exists. Again, I said the debate should not be on the right to keep arms. The Second Amendment exists to keep a free state and prevent tyranny.
That's exactly right. So let's keep the argument exactly on that, right? Let's keep it very focused on that because that's what it is.
Yeah. But to your point, even on gun control, right? Like, or further laws or more gun control. Tell me, and I've asked this before. Well, what would you propose Oh, a federal gun registry. Well, once I do a federal background check, I'm entered into a registry. And all I do is purchase a firearm. So that already exists.
It's already there. It's already tracked with the ATF. There's bound books by every FFL license holder. Or every FFL in the country has bound books. It has to come in. It has to go out. It's tracked who it is.
Yeah.
Right?
So again, like looking at that, I've always proposed, can you give me something? And they're like, well, again, the laws that are, the rules that are already in place, right? The reason I say that, and the reason I say it that way, right, is because a law cannot be passed that does not, or that a law cannot be passed that can supersede the Constitution. It can't be, right?
Nor can a rule be made.
Right.
All of these have to be argued up to the Supreme Court.
So again, so it just depends on how deep your pockets are, right? Checks and balances. Yeah. But in a nutshell, right? Let's keep the conversation pure. The Second Amendment is there for a purpose, and the purpose is to prevent tyranny.
That's right.
Period.
That's right. And I think that there is, that is realistic to me to say that even today in this idiotic argument that, the government has more powerful shit that you can't compete with your AR-15 even, argument, when you put X millions of people that have them, then it keeps people in check, keeps the government in check to some degree. And so I think that it's doing what it was meant to do. Yeah.
If you think it can't, though, holler at your boy. Like, come holler at your boy. I spent some time in combat. I spent time on Blackhawks on UH-60s, and they're loaded down with miniguns. Yep. We have missiles or rockets and different armament on these things, right? And I've watched them be taken down by small arms fire from a hilltop, right?
There you go.
So come holler at your boy if you think,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched it, so I've seen it with my own eyes.
Absolutely.
Dude, the government might have more power, bro. I'm going to tell you right now, the armament on a Black Hawk helicopter is far superior than an AK-47,
right?
Or a high caliber.
And you've seen ground fire take them down while you were at war. Yeah. Wow, man.
So I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. Right.
I mean, I saw it happen in movies.
Yeah.
But
right. That kind of goes back to, again, the Call of Duty thing. And
right. Well, I'm curious. Were you ever on a bird that went down?
Was that
in a situation like that? You were a crew chief.
We've done hard
Did you ever?
landings, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, man.
Not necessarily from that scenario, but yeah.
Wow. So, as we talk further about this in the Second Amendment, I want to make sure that we all focus as people that are innately interested in this right, and that it's important to understand some things that we need to do to make sure it stays and it's real. Yeah. And it's have this exact conversation with as many people as we possibly can. Yep. And it's also take people out, take your friends. And I joke that I want to do for Guns America, do a take a liberal to the range day.
Yeah.
Do something like that. And the reason I say that is because have you ever taken somebody to the range that was terrified of guns or that only knew one narrative? They took them to shoot. Have you ever seen somebody walk away from the range like, that was terrible, I don't want to do it again?
Never.
No, they're giddy, they're smiling, they're happy. And I think it's important to realize that by the more guns we get in people's hands and we teach them to safely handle them, to respect them, to understand them, ultimately that makes that right valuable to those people.
Yeah.
It's real easy to not care about a right that you feel like you don't benefit from or you don't utilize.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. It's like, for example, like I go back to the late 80s, early 90s, and Tupperware salesmen, right? They were all over the place.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe y'all are familiar if y'all are from that generation, right? The Tupperware salespeople. Well, who was the most successful in selling Tupperware? The people that actually used it.
Right. That ran it over in their cars and stuff, right?
Yeah, the people like Uncle Rico. The people that actually used it were the most successful with it.
That's right.
Right? So backtrack that into your rights, right? If I'm exercising that right, it's more valuable to
That's
me.
right.
Right? It holds more value. So, in considering that, right, again, dude, I've taken people to the range before. Now, look, don't be an idiot and put a Desert Eagle in a first-time shooter's hand and then expect them to have fun.
To see their
It is fun to see their reaction. But again,
you're right.
Do that, somebody's going to be like, no, I never want to do this game. That was so scary.
Oh, my God.
Right? Take them out. Like, I mean, bro, we actually... we took some folks out to a range last year, and when we did, we took out like plinking rifles, like 22s. And they're like, man, that was so fun.
Yeah.
Like, start there,
Right. Start low, have fun, get them in people's hands, but help people to understand why this is important. And it starts with awareness, right? Starts helping people to be comfortable and enjoy this. And then they realize, oh, this is pretty cool. Yeah. So nonetheless, guys, thank you, and we're wrapping up here at the time today, but thank you for spending your time with us today. We know you everybody's busy. You have a lot going on, but this particular issue is extremely important, and we're going to continue to have conversations about it. But again, thank you for spending time with us today. My name is Chris with Guns America and Vulcan Arms, and happy to spend some time with you.
Guys, again, like, share, subscribe, comment. Let's get the information out there. Let's keep the conversation going. We appreciate all of the time that you've spent with us. You could have spent it anywhere. You chose to spend it listening to us talk about these issues. So if you like what you hear, again, continue to share that. If you need to purchase a firearm, or you're interested, or you're in the market, check out GunsAmerica.com. And to keep those firearms safe, retained, and protected from the elements, go check out VulcanArms.com.
Thank you. Peace.